The rain poured over the empty city street, blurring the neon lights into streaks of red and gold, reflecting the storm inside his heart. He remembered the warmth of her touch, the laugh that used to fill his penthouse, now gone. 12 years ago, she had walked out of his life, leaving a small hand in his memory, the child he never knew he would father. Every corner whispered her name. Every shadow seemed to hide her silhouette, and then through the downpour he saw her, older, radiant, carrying a boy who mirrored his own eyes. His chest tightened, disbelief and longing warring in every heartbeat. He had built empires, conquered business rivals, yet nothing prepared him for this. Her gaze locking onto his, serene, yet guarded, a silent question between them. Could love lost truly be found again? The rain blurred the lines between past and present, leaving him suspended in the electric ache of recognition. A father finally facing the child he never knew he had. The memory of her smile haunted him, even in the gleaming boardrooms where power reigned. Damien had thrown himself into his empire, conquering rivals and sealing deals with icy precision. Yet nothing filled the void left by her absence. 12 years ago, the tiny life she carried had disappeared from his arms, leaving him questioning everything he thought he knew about love, betrayal, and timing. He remembered the last moment, the suitcase, the trembling hands, the whispered apology he never understood. Now, watching the city pulse below his penthouse, he wondered if fate had finally conspired to bring them back together. If the child who had grown into a quiet, thoughtful boy held the key to the closure and the love he had never forgotten. No. Across the city, Serena traced her finger along the rim of her coffee cup, watching Aiden fidget with a book that held his curiosity, but not his attention. Life had demanded sacrifice. Leaving him behind in Damien's world was never an option. She had built a quiet, stable life shielded by routine and love, yet something stirred uneasily in her chest, an echo of memories she had buried. The rain outside tapped a rhythm against the window, like a heartbeat calling her back to the past, to the man whose presence had once made the world feel infinite, before everything broke apart. That evening, Damien walked the rain-slicked streets alone, the city lights blurring into streaks of memory. Faces of deals and colleagues faded. Only hers remained, etched into the corners of his mind. He realized that no amount of money, success, or accolades could fill the emptiness left by the child he never held, the love he never resolved. Every echo of laughter and passing cars seemed to mimic the one he had longed to hear. Somewhere, somehow, he knew that the past was converging with the present, and he would be forced to confront it, whether he wanted to or not. As night fell, Serena tucked Aiden into bed, her fingers lingering on his hair, tracing the curve of his cheek. She whispered promises she had carried in her heart for years, of safety, of love, and of decisions made out of courage, not fear. Yet a part of her wondered if their quiet life was enough, if the man who once loved her still lingered in the shadows of the city, watching, waiting. She closed the door softly, leaving the child asleep, unaware of the storm their reunion would bring, the collision of past choices and present desires that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love and forgiveness. The gala hall shimmered with crystal chandeliers, the sound of clinking glasses blending with polite laughter and murmured conversations. Damien, sharp in a midnight blue tuxedo, moved through the crowd with practiced ease, but his mind was elsewhere. He had dominated markets, orchestrated mergers, and amassed wealth beyond measure. Yet the thought of her lingered at the edge of every triumph. Then, in a corridor lined with golden drapes, he saw her, Serena, radiant in a deep emerald gown, her hand lightly brushing Aiden, who wore a miniature suit, both unaware of the storm their reunion would ignite. Time slowed. 12 years of absence condensed into one heartbeat. Could he confront her without unraveling everything he had built? or everything he had longed to reclaim? Serena's heart skipped as she noticed Damien's gaze cutting across the room, sharp and unmistakable. Memories surged unbidden. The laughter, the arguments, the final, tearful goodbye. Aiden tugged gently at her hand, sensing her tension, and she reminded herself that the past was a chapter long closed. Yet seeing him here, commanding the room with effortless authority, stirred something ancient, familiar, and dangerously alluring. 12 years apart, and still the air between them felt charged. Every glance a challenge, every step a question they both feared to answer. Damien maneuvered through the crowd, every polite smile masking the storm within. He had rehearsed how he might speak to her, but words dissolved under the weight of 12 years of absence. Seeing Aiden for the first time, a mirror of his own features, both startled and awed him. Questions surged. Why had she left? Had she ever thought of him? Could forgiveness and love ever bridge the chasm of betrayal and time? As he neared, the world seemed to narrow to the three of them, and he realized that power, wealth, and control meant nothing compared to the child he had never held, and the woman who still held his heart. Aiden glanced at Damien with wide, curious eyes, sensing a connection he did not yet understand. Serena instinctively positioned herself protectively, yet something in Damien's gaze, the recognition, the subtle warmth, made her pause. 12 years of silence, absence, and unanswered questions hung between them. But the child's innocence and the unmistakable echo of past love began to dissolve, barriers neither had expected to face. Every subtle glance, every tentative movement charged the space with an electric mix of anticipation, fear, and possibility. The moment stretched into silence, punctuated only by the faint clinking of glasses and soft orchestral music. Damien finally spoke. A single word, almost lost in the grandeur of the hall. But it was enough. Serena froze, her mind racing back through every heartbreak, every sacrifice, every stolen memory. Aiden tilted his head, unsure of the tension, but sensing its gravity. In that instant, the past collided with the present, and each of them understood that the story they had paused 12 years ago was far from over. The night air outside the gala was crisp, carrying the scent of rain and polished streets. Damien leaned against his sleek black car, chest tight, trying to steady the whirlwind inside him. Serena approached cautiously, emerald gown shimmering under streetlights. Aiden, walking a step behind. Words hung unspoken, a decade of absence pressing between them. Finally, Damien spoke, his voice low but steady, carrying authority and vulnerability at once. Memories flashed, laughter, tears, the unbearable goodbye. Serena's eyes softened, yet a guarded edge remained, her lips pressed together to contain both anger and longing. The child, innocent yet perceptive, tugged slightly at her hand. A silent reminder that their reunion wasn't just about two adults. It was about the life they had created together in secret 12 years ago. Damien's gaze shifted to Aiden, the boy whose presence he had imagined countless times but never met. There was a spark of recognition, a fragile thread connecting father and son. Serena saw it too. The reflection of Damien in the boy's eyes, the way he carried himself, subtle echoes of gestures and expressions she had long remembered. A rush of unspoken emotions surged through her, mixing gratitude with lingering hurt. The night was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic. Every pause waited with the tension of what they had lost and what could now be reclaimed. I never stopped thinking about you, Damien admitted, voice rough, carrying the weight of years of longing. Serena looked away, wind catching her curls, heart pounding. She wanted to say she had survived without him, that love alone could not fill the void, but 12 years of memories surged back with his words. Aiden fidgeted nervously, sensing the tension, the silent storm between the adults. Each word, each glance seemed to stretch time, forcing them to confront the impossible. The love that never truly faded, and the choices that had shaped their lives apart. The silence stretched until Serena finally spoke, her voice trembling yet firm. "You can't erase 12 years, Damien. You can't just step back into our lives as if nothing happened." Damien nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth. He had no answers for the pain of abandonment, only a longing to make amends. The tension between them shimmered like heat in the night air, a fragile bridge of emotion forming, ready to be tested. Aiden peeked between them, sensing the unsteady ground of reconciliation caught between curiosity and caution, a silent witness to the collision of past and present. Finally, a quiet understanding passed between them. Not complete forgiveness, not full trust, but the fragile acknowledgement that what had been lost could perhaps be rebuilt. Damien extended a hand toward Aiden, a tentative bridge, an unspoken promise. Serena watched, her chest heavy with emotion, weighing the risk of hope against the pain of past abandonment. The night held them in a delicate balance, the rain-slicked streets reflecting a future uncertain yet filled with the possibility of love, reconciliation, and the family they were only just beginning to confront. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, casting warm patterns on the kitchen floor. Damien's mind was restless, replaying last night's encounter over and over. He had extended his hand to Aiden, and Serena had watched him with caution and curiosity. Now, seated across from her at a small table, coffee steaming between them, he realized that connecting with her again would require patience, humility, and a willingness to reveal the man he had become, beyond the wealth and power. She sipped her tea, eyes guarded, yet a subtle softness hinted at her curiosity about the man he was now. They walked along the riverside park, the crisp air carrying the scent of fallen leaves in early autumn. Aiden ran ahead, laughing, unaware of the silent negotiations between the adults. Damien observed him with careful attention, a mix of pride and longing stirring in his chest. Serena walked beside him, adjusting her scarf against the wind, measuring every word. Each step, each glance was a careful dance, testing boundaries, gauging trust, and allowing small moments of connection to seep through the cracks left by 12 years. Later that evening, Damien invited Serena and Aiden to his private art gallery. Walls glowed with carefully curated pieces, each frame a reflection of creativity and emotion. He watched Serena move between paintings, her fingers grazing textures, eyes soft with admiration and thoughtfulness. The air between them was charged, not just with memory, but with the promise of rediscovery. Words were unnecessary. In glances and shared silences, they began to rebuild a language only they could understand. The next morning, Serena found herself in Damien's penthouse, reviewing Aiden's school schedule together. Each shared task, each exchange of laughter over a forgotten pencil or spilled coffee, chipped away at the walls they had built. Damien felt the weight of 12 years melt slightly in these small, intimate moments. Trust wasn't granted. It was earned, step by step, gesture by gesture. And in these small steps, they discovered that what had been lost could begin to bloom again. Cautiously, but unmistakably, night fell, and the city lights shimmered outside Damien's floor-to-ceiling windows. Serena stood near the balcony, watching Aiden sleep in the guest room. Damien joined her silently, the distance between them now a fragile bridge rather than a chasm. Neither spoke at first. The quiet carried weight, the unsaid words of longing, regret, and hope hovering in the air. Slowly, their hands brushed. A tentative connection, a silent acknowledgement that 12 years could not erase what they once shared, and perhaps what they could share again. The boardroom was cold and silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the shuffle of papers. Damien sat at the head of the table, sharp and commanding, yet his mind kept drifting to Serena and Aiden. A rival CEO had called, dangling a deal that threatened not just his company, but his carefully curated life. He realized that balancing business and the fragile threads of his personal life would be harder than any corporate conquest. The past and present collided, reminding him that love and trust required as much strategy and courage as any high-stakes merger. Serena felt a subtle unease as she received a cryptic email referencing the past she had fought to leave behind. 12 years of silence seemed fragile against the weight of old grudges and whispers from those who never understood her choices. Aiden noticed her frown and asked questions she wasn't ready to answer. Each reminder of the past was a test, pushing her and Damien to communicate clearly or risk repeating mistakes that had once torn them apart. Damien confronted a former lover unexpectedly at a charity gala. The encounter stirred buried emotions, jealousy, and a surge of insecurity he hadn't anticipated. Serena stood nearby, arms crossed, observing quietly, yet her mind raced with doubt. Could he truly choose her now? Or was the past destined to interfere with the present? Aiden watched from a corner, sensing tension but unaware of its history. The night became a labyrinth of glances, whispered apologies, and the silent negotiation of hearts wary of old pain. Later, Serena and Damien met in a quiet park to talk without distractions. Words were heavy, emotions raw. The past had left scars, and though their bond had begun to heal, old wounds whispered doubts. Damien spoke with honesty and humility. Serena listened, wrestling with trust and fear of being hurt again. Aiden played nearby, the innocence of childhood contrasting the fragile emotional negotiations unfolding mere feet away. The storm had passed, but the night was still tense. Damien and Serena realized that love could not exist in isolation. It demanded courage, forgiveness, and action. Aiden tugged at their hands simultaneously, reminding them that family was now at stake. The challenges were far from over, but in that shared glance, in the tentative smiles and unspoken promises, they recognized a fragile but undeniable truth. Together, they could confront the world, no matter how many obstacles the past or present threw in their way. The city hummed beneath the penthouse, distant traffic a subtle reminder of the world outside. Damien paced the polished floor, tension in every movement. An anonymous tip about a corporate betrayal had arrived, threatening both his empire and his fragile family life. Serena watched silently, sensing the storm building in his chest, unsure whether he could handle the pressure without lashing out. 12 years of separation, 12 years of regret, seemed irrelevant in the face of this immediate danger. And yet, beneath the professional crisis, there lingered a more personal reckoning. The fear that love, like empires, could crumble under pressure. The following morning, a misunderstanding erupted when a leaked photo suggested Damien had been seen with another woman. Serena felt betrayal sting her chest, her carefully rebuilt trust wobbling. Damien explained, frustration and desperation intertwining, his words rushing but sincere. Aiden watched them with wide eyes, sensing the emotional earthquake but not fully understanding its roots. Hearts and pride clashed, threatening to undo months of progress. In the silence that followed, both knew that love required truth, courage, and vulnerability, or it would shatter entirely. Damien realized he had to act, not as a businessman, but as a father and a man in love. He invited Serena and Aiden to a secluded coastal retreat for clarity and reconciliation. Waves crashed against the cliffs below, wind tangling hair and carrying away past grievances. Serena, hesitant but curious, felt the weight of the past lighten slightly as the fresh sea air washed over her. Damien spoke not of deals or empires, but of love, forgiveness, and the shared life they had never abandoned. Aiden laughed, chasing the seagulls, bridging the gap between adults with innocent joy. As sunset painted the sky in molten gold and rose, Damien knelt before Aiden, not as a wealthy businessman, but as the father he had longed to be. He promised guidance, protection, and love, words carrying the sincerity of 12 years of longing and absence. Serena watched, tears in her eyes, her heart softening to the man who had not abandoned her completely, but had grown into someone capable of choosing love over pride. The horizon glowed, mirroring the tentative warmth blossoming between them. A fragile family, forging a new beginning. Night fell, stars twinkling above, and for the first time in 12 years, Damien and Serena walked side by side without unspoken barriers. Aiden ran ahead on the moonlit beach, laughter echoing into the night. Words were unnecessary. Every glance, every shared breath carried understanding, forgiveness, and hope. The past had been stormy, the present challenging, but in this moment they glimpsed the possibility of a future they could build together. Stronger, wiser, and grounded in love that had survived absence, time, and trials. The morning sun bathed the coastal home in soft golden light. Damien moved quietly around the kitchen, preparing breakfast with a focused yet content expression. Serena stood by the window watching Aiden chase the tide outside, his laughter mingling with the gentle crash of waves. 12 years of absence, pain, and longing felt suspended in this calm moment. Words were unnecessary. They had rebuilt trust through shared experiences, vulnerability, and the courage to face the past together. In silence, love spoke louder than any confession ever could. Later, the three of them walked along the shoreline, barefoot in the sand. Aiden collected shells, laughing and sharing discoveries with both parents. Serena and Damien exchanged glances full of unspoken understanding, a subtle smile passing between them. The trials, misunderstandings, and heartbreak of the past no longer held power over them. They were no longer two adults fractured by separation. They were a family, anchored by love, trust, and the resilience that had carried them through 12 years apart. As the sun began to set, Damien and Serena sat on a large driftwood log watching Aiden play. Conversation flowed easily now. No walls, no caution, only connection and genuine care. Each shared glance and quiet laugh confirmed the truth they had discovered together. Love lost could indeed be found again. Stronger and deeper, shaped by time, resilience, and unwavering devotion. In that moment, the past felt like a distant shadow, and the future stretched before them, full of hope and possibility. Night fell, and the first stars sparkled overhead. They lit a small bonfire, its warm glow reflecting on their faces. Aiden roasted marshmallows eagerly, while Damien and Serena shared quiet stories and laughter. Every scar, every loss, every challenge that had once threatened to keep them apart now felt like a thread woven into a tapestry of resilience and love. Their hearts were no longer burdened by what had been. They were free to embrace what could be. In the quiet aftermath of the bonfire, Damien reached for Serena's hand. Their fingers intertwined effortlessly, a silent promise of love that had endured years of absence, misunderstandings, and challenges. Aiden curled up between them, finally drifting to sleep, confident in the presence of both parents. The night air was filled with peace, hope, and the gentle certainty that no matter what storms came, they would face them together. Love, long delayed, had been reclaimed, and this time, it was unbreakable.